Nothing in this town can ratchet up expectations or excitement level for a season more than the previous sports season going south. You get a football team that loses a couple of games early, people start staring for that basketball team. Where is it? Basketball loses a couple of games there in late January. Okay, what's the baseball starting rotation look like? What do we got? What are we looking at here? That's the nature of what I see in my Twitter mentions, in my conversations when things start to go south. And clearly this football season has not started the way that we hoped, and you're looking at a coaching change, and so everybody kind of looks to basketball. And it's well documented how much I love basketball. I started a freaking basketball daily podcast when I was selling insurance every single morning before work for the last 3 years. I think this basketball program's in great shape. We'll see what happens here moving forward. But yesterday was a real gut punch as the report surfaced that Adam Miller, the talented two-guard transfer from Illinois, who started on a number 1 seed last year and led the Big Ten in threes made by a freshman, will not be playing for LSU this year as he's suffered an ACL injury. So what does it mean? Well, last year at Illinois, Miller averaged 8.3 points per game, and he shot 34% from three. Neither one of those are massive numbers. Wasn't like he went out there and shot 46% from three. Wasn't a 15-point-a-game scorer as a freshman. But he's on a really good team, and he kind of played a role. Hit a couple threes early against Duke and Cameron. Wasn't a full Cameron. It was a COVID Cameron, but still started NCAA tournament games. Was a nice role player and was thought enough of, outside of that, to be a top 50 player in the country coming out of high school and to be on Team USA this past summer. He's a really hard worker, and I haven't seen this team work together, and high school film is difficult to evaluate versus college film when you start to put pieces together. He would have probably been my bet to lead this team in scoring. He was more of a spot-up shooter for Illinois last year, but he's a capable off-the-bounce scorer. He's capable of getting his own shot. And I think would have been asked to do that a little bit more. And I think he probably would have led this team in scoring. Now, we'll see. There's some really talented dudes on this roster that may take that mantle. But I think he was going to be your leading scorer. So for me, yeah, this is a deep team. And we'll talk about the options that are going to fill in for Miller. It's a deep team, but when you lose a starter that's very likely going to be your leading scorer, or very possibly going to be your leading scorer, maybe I should say, that's bad. That is a bad deal. And it's not like they don't have any options, but this is a dude. And when I talk to football guys all the time, and they always say next man up, and I feel like basketball guys feel the same, but if the next man up's not as good, your team's not as good, period. And this is a big loss. I think Miller would have been a really good spot-up shooter. There's reason to believe a freshman that shoots 34% as a sophomore or junior could shoot pushing 40, and that would be just massive to spread the floor with the talent that LSU's got, to have a two-guard that could shoot it like that. And I make sure to specify that because what they've got behind him is less likely to be as productive. So let's get into that. Xavier Pinson's going to be the starting point guard on this team. He started at Mizzou the last couple of years. He was a big piece of that team. Now, they weren't very good. But the hope was that Pinson would be the guy who facilitated more. And Will Wade's talked a couple of times in interviews that, Pinson's really running the show for us. He's distributing. Missouri asked him to, or he took it upon himself, to do a lot more. He shot a lot, tried to score a lot. He was a volume shooter and not necessarily a high percentage shooter at Missouri. What bothers me is that it's probably going to fall more on his lap to score more with Miller out. His last 2 years at Missouri, he shot 28% from three and 34% to three. That really needs to come up, and if he shoots a high volume of them, I don't know that it is. He's going to be the primary option. That, I don't know if it'll be a good thing. Maybe it is. Maybe he makes some real strides and becomes an all-league type player. He's been a 2-year starter in the league. It's not wild to think so. It's optimistic, and I think it's a negative for LSU if he's taken more of Miller's shots away. So who are the other options? Well, Eric Gaines, He played in every game last year for LSU, started a good bit, but in playing in every game, he averaged 2.5 points per game and shot 17% from three. Some of that, I think, was mental. You get off to a tough start, and you're a freshman, and now you're thinking about it every time you shoot the ball. And that's a tough spot to be in, but he's not going to be a great shooter. And he was going to be kind of a depth piece that can give you some good defense, playmaking ability, distribution ability, not necessarily a scorer. Now his minutes go up, and is that a great thing? That's optimistic to say it will be. Brandon Murray, he comes in. He's a bowling ball. He's a driver. You're not as effective as a driver if you don't have guys on the outside that can shoot it. Gaines shot it very poorly last year. Pinson hasn't been a great shooter. Days will help you there because Days was a 40% spot-up shooter last year, and that's a big deal. He widens the floor. But Miller was going to be your floor-widening guy, and now you don't have that. Does this open up the door for Justice Williams to play more? This is based on Will Wade's comments, not my thoughts or anything that I know from talking to anybody, but Justice Williams was a top 55, top 60 player in the country who reclassified recently and is coming to college a year early to start his NBA clock a little bit earlier. But I don't think they were expecting him to play a huge role in this team. You had Pinson, you had Miller, you figured Gaines would help, Murray as well, and Wani Wilkinson's still in there. Not a spot where Justice Williams needs to be a huge role player on this team. Maybe some minutes in December against some of the lighter teams. Blowout minutes, ease him into college. He's 6'3", he's a good scoring shooting guard, but he's a year younger. He's skinny, and he's young. Not supposed to be in college. How much does his role increase? I don't know. He's a set shooter. The shot looks a little bit more like Javonte Smart than it does Cam Thomas, kind of more of a set look. He's taller than Javonte, a little bit. But none of those options are as good as Adam Miller. And that's what I'm talking about when I say next man up. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, literally they're going to play, but we'll see. Miller was going to be a really big piece to this puzzle. And we'll hear Will Wade speak to the media at 4 o'clock today via Zoom, and we'll have some sound from that. You'll hear maybe on Matt's show, and certainly tomorrow with the morning show boys, and we'll cover it as well. But that's a huge blow and such a disappointing result before the season ever starts for an LSU team that I've got a ton of optimism for. I know they were picked 6th in the conference. That was what the SEC media put out earlier this week. I think they had every opportunity and still do to be better than that. It's a tough schedule, and now you've lost your starting 2 guard. They won't be the only team that suffers injuries, but man, if you're going to take some little bit of solace in it, it's that it happened now, and you've got an opportunity to kind of ramp some guys up a little bit more quickly than you thought. I think Murray, they love him. I think he's a great defender, and he's a driver. But it just sucks to have that happen to a kid. And so the question is that I've been asked is, does Miller come back? He was a guy who had eyes on the NBA, I think. It's going to be tough to miss a whole year when you've just been a freshman averaging 8 a game to take a leap. He's got eyes on the NBA, we know that, but whether or not that's something that he looks into after never playing for LSU, that's tough to tell. In basketball, you've got a situation now where it's not necessarily about the program, it's about building rosters year by year. We'll see where he fits, and maybe Will Wade will elaborate a little bit more on that. Certainly, that's not a decision that needs to be made right now and is not going to be front of mind. It's going to be getting healthy on Miller's end, and it's going to be, all right, how do we put this back together from LSU's end? But again, I think there's probably some people who go, oh, this is time for Murray to eat. Let's go and want it. He can play. Oh, we got Justice Williams. We'll be fine. He's a top 50 player. This is a guy who was on Team USA last summer. This is a guy who has started on a number 1 seed. It's a big, big loss. So hopefully LSU can find the points around him to make it work.